Hi there, Randy, owner of Rogues Gallery here. And before we start the podcast this week, I wanted to put a mention that this weekend is Staple Independent Media Expo on Saturday, March 1st and Sunday, March 2nd. And we will be sponsoring, so we will have Francesco Francavilla, who's done Afterlife with Archie, Black Beetle, a bunch of other stuff we all really enjoy. We will have a booth there on Saturday and Sunday. And in addition, Chip Zdarsky from Sex Criminals, Rob Harold did Monster on the Hill, and a bunch of local creators. Definitely worth your time. So come out on Saturday or Sunday and come see us. And until next week, enjoy the podcast. Thanks.
Ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka, ooka chaka, ooka, ooka.
I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling. I'm high on believing that you're in love with me.
Welcome to Roguecast, the official podcast of Rogues Gallery and Round Rock, where we talk about games, comics, and other stuff on our pop cultural radar. I'm Randy.
I am Nick.
This is Dave.
And we got the original crew back together for this one.
Yes,
we have important business to discuss, gentlemen.
That's right. Get the women out.
That was sexy.
Wow, that went fast.
Dave, you should get out of here.
That went sexist fast.
Dave, I mean, that might be a record.
Like, that's where you were leading?
I really wasn't.
No, it's not where we're going.
I really wasn't.
Oh, okay.
Follow the red line.
First of all, we want to offer up a much belated thank you to one of our longtime customers, Steve Maggi, who asked not to be thanked, but guess what? You're getting thanked.
That's right.
Yeah, you have to
He did a very cool thing for us.
Yes,
that sort of it came from the show.
Yeah, since we all close out our shows with Yo Joe, since we are all longtime G.I. Joe fans,
True.
In case you're puzzled why we do that, that's why.
Yes.
Yep. And by the way, but my recent theory is that Yo Joe is to G.I. Joe what As You Wish is to The Princess Bride.
That's how we say I love you.
So that's right.
Yep.
Interesting.
So that's
I like it.
that's what we're telling you out
Yes.
there when we say Yo Joe.
Okay, good to know.
You rhymed.
The opinions of Dave do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Rogues
I
Gallery.
never have.
I never have and never will.
He's sexist and he loves G.I. Joe.
I'm a tool.
But
Steve did a really cool thing for us.
he bought us through T-Fury, which I'll explain in a minute. The shirts you can search if you do Spirit of 86 Cobra. It's very much, it's like the Spirit of 76, the famous three guys marching.
Like Revolutionary War, where
Yep.
one guy's playing like the flute and the other guy's playing the drums. And
One
stuff
guy's
like
got a
that.
bandaged leg.
This T-shirt accurately represents history.
Yeah.
And it has members of Cobra.
Yes, it's
G.I. Joe's bad guys in place of them. And it's super
Cobra
awesome.
Commander,
Happened in
Baroness.
76, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so the shirt is called what? Spirit of 86?
Spirit of 86.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one
G.I.
of those
Joe.
banner years for G.I. Joe.
Yeah. And so that was cool. He bought that for all the staffers.
Yep, he got our sizes and everything. Very nice of him.
At some point, we owed him a picture. It's just that the five of us are never together in one room, and if we are, we're usually not wearing the same shirt.
And if we are, we're fighting.
Yeah, usually.
Oh, right.
T-Fury actually is one of those. It's there's several of those pop-up tee, a bunch of these that I've done this a fair amount. I'm not as addicted to T-shirts as our staff for Chelsea, but I'm pretty close.
And a lot of our customers already go
yeah.
to these folks.
The pop-up tee will basically, you like it on Facebook. Every day they'll have a new shirt. It's $10. It lasts for 24 hours. And I've gotten a fair number. I've gotten some Serenity shirts through them. I've gotten some Calvin and Hobbes shirts.
They do a lot of pop cultural stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to jump in on the right day.
So, T-Fury is definitely worth checking into.
And thank you again, Steve.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the topic we need to discuss, just this last week, the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer dropped. I wasn't expecting it. When I heard about it the day before, and I'm like, oh, I guess they're going to premiere. I thought, first of all, it's an August 1 release.
Yeah.
I thought it was November. I thought this was like there later in the year, because they do one in summer and one in later in the year. I guess not this time. And I didn't think the trailer was going to be anywhere near. I didn't think the trailer was going to be ready. I thought maybe we get a teaser on Cap, and that was it.
I think I knew just through the grapevine that it was coming.
Yeah. I heard the day before, and then I saw the teaser, and then the trailer. Like literally the second it went up on Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, I was going to say, was it Jimmy Kimmel that it was up on?
Yeah.
Which is kind of a unique place to debut a trailer. Has that really been
I think
done
Chris
before?
Pratt was on there. Oh yeah, I think they've done.
Oh yeah, they've done that before.
Trailers.
Really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Chris Pratt was on there. So
literally the minute it was on the YouTube, and I believe it was posted by everyone on my Facebook feed.
Every single person.
yeah, I've pretty much my entire friend list.
Yep.
So-
I went ahead and posted it just to because I enjoyed it, and I wanted to go ahead and join the saturation.
And so we'll put a link to it here in case you haven't seen it, but you probably have. If not, what's wrong with you?
And by the way, do most people know about Guardians of the Galaxy?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
Well,
I
you're
don't
about
think
to
that's a
find out.
known
It's-
quantity.
Just in the briefest encapsulation I can make is that I think back in the 70s they were a team of cosmic heroes that Marvel had that kind of got forgotten.
Well, they came about from Marvel at one point had the rights to or at least we're doing the public domain stuff of the War of the Worlds Martians.
Right?
So this was the post War of the Worlds thing.
Was it? That was Killraven.
It was, but it led from Killraven.
Oh, okay.
But their particular interest was the Badoon.
right.
The Badoon had invaded.
An alien race.
It was in
Right.
it was like the 30th century. They were all genetically engineered humans from different worlds. They had powers based on that.
I was doing the quick explanation, Randy. I was just going to say
Sorry.
they were space heroes back in the day.
They were space heroes in the 70s. The weird thing about this is that other than one character named Yondu, who's going to be played by Michael Rooker, who's not in the trailer,
Nope,
Yeah.
he's not. He's mentioned.
the Guardians of the Galaxy of the 70s really aren't germane to the movie.
Right. You don't really need to know anything about them. Well, actually, you won't need to know anything
No.
about any of them. But in the early 2000s, Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning revamped a whole lot of Marvel's cosmic heroes.
it
Yes.
wasn't just them. It was also Keith
It
Giffen.
was also Keith Giffen.
And
That's
a lot
true.
of other
Giffen
people.
was major. One of the major
There was a
players.
big sci-fi epic they did called Annihilation.
Yeah, and that was the rebranded everything.
And then the sequel to Annihilation, because it was very successful, was called Annihilation Conquest, and it involved the old X-Men foes,
the Phalanx.
the Phalanx. I won't reveal who's behind them because that was one of the coolest reveals in it.
That's
yes.
awesome.
And during this Phalanx invasion, a bunch of heroes were kidnapped by the Kree.
Yeah, they were imprisoned by the Kree. They also grabbed Star-Lord, who had helped Nova in the original Annihilation.
Right. Okay. So Star-Lord was actually
And Star-Lord was, they brought them in, and they were like, we want you to lead a band of, guys,
fighters.
freedom fighters,
Yeah.
in to fight the Phalanx.
Yeah.
And he was stuck with
and his team.
Rocket
a bunch of
raccoons.
misfits.
Yeah.
Bunch of,
Rocket-
So a raccoon, a tree, a woman named Mantis, who I can't even begin to
No,
describe Mantis.
just
Or the
Wikipedia Mantis if you got to
a
know.
weird.
she's a martial artist.
She is a martial artist. Bug from the old Micronauts.
Drax was in there,
Right.
He shows up. Yes,
Longtime
he
Thanos
wasn't in
hunter
prison.
Drax.
and then was Gamora part of the original, or did
No,
she join
she was
later?
not. She
That's what I
joined
thought.
later.
Yeah.
So basically, this was all successful, and they launched the ongoing Guardian of the Galaxy book, which lasted for 30-some issues.
Yep.
We were all big fans at the time.
Right. It just never took off in big numbers, and
No.
that's why most of you
Well,
probably don't really know about it very
a
well.
3-year run is nothing to sneeze at.
No,
No.
but it's still... And, Marvel readers might know about it, but for the most part, I'm getting a lot of people these days who are like, who are these Guardians of the
Well, the
Galaxy?
last time they were in print was 5 or 6 years ago at least.
I have to ask a question real quick.
Yeah.
Growing up, were you guys really into the cosmic stuff?
No.
A little bit. Like, I liked Thanos, and I
Yeah.
liked Silver Surfer, and I did buy the Silver Surfer comic that, Steve Englehart and then later Jim Starlin wrote that was, I'm going to say late 80s through early 90s or mid-90s.
I read that book because at the time I was reading almost everything Marvel, and I did like Silver Surfer.
But I think, honestly, I feel like the heyday for the cosmic guys was in the 70s,
Yeah.
which was a little bit before my time.
Before my time as well.
When you had more stuff with Thanos and Drax and all of
Adam
those
Warlock.
guys.
Yeah.
But I like...
I mean, in the 90s, I read, Infinity Watch. Wasn't that, Adam Warlock's team where they had the Infinity Gems?
That was sort of
and
that was all Starlin's 70s characters
Yep.
sort of revamped for the 90s. It's when Infinity Gauntlet started.
But also,
I think what happens is a lot of creators have a fondness for this. Whatever version was it they grew up with.
Yeah.
Then when they get to work to Marvel, they're like, I want to reintroduce these characters to a new audience. So even though they're obscure, every 5 or 10 years, somebody's like, let's see if we can dust them off.
Well, prior to the trailer coming out, because they were going to do a movie, Bendis decided to do his version of Guardians of the Galaxy, which I'm not a super fan of. I know some people are really liking it. Our former staffer Dan really likes it.
Yeah, he really likes it. He says that Bendis works well for those characters.
That's why we fired him, right?
Yeah. No, but so, and the kind of sad thing is, I think all three of us would highly, highly recommend the Abnett Landing stuff. Like, if you see that trailer, and you're like, oh, how can I find more about these guys? You're like, oh, you should read the Abnett Landing stuff. Here's the only problem. It's out of print.
Yeah. It is.
There are rumors they're going to put it back in. Actually, not even rumors. They've confirmed they're going to put it back in print. I imagine we'll be seeing those Guardians of the Galaxy trades probably in like August or September after the movie comes out, which is weird timing.
It is.
Right. Like, we would love to have them right now, as people are hyped. And shall we now talk about the trailer?
Before we get to the trailer, I want to finish the comics thing.
Okay, fire away.
The other thing they're doing is they're reprinting all the Annihilation stuff in one big, giant hardcover omnibus, which, unfortunately, we didn't order for the store because it's like $150.
Right. This is kind of beyond the price point of casual buyers.
It's a megatome.
But I want to mention it because if it's something that sounds interesting to you, I think all three of us would highly recommend it.
I actually liked all the Annihilation stuff over the Guardians of the Galaxy that spun out of it.
I actually agree. I think that's stronger.
This is not really to slam Guardians at all.
No, Guardians is great.
Really good. But Annihilation, I love.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I own all the hardcovers of Annihilation.
Yeah, so do I.
And the omnibus, I believe, is going to collect basically 5 hardcovers worth of material. It's 3 Annihilation and 2 Annihilation Conquest.
Yeah.
And by the way, Annihilation doesn't have the Guardians throughout. Some of them show up in there, bits and pieces.
Peter Quill shows up.
Peter Quill is in from the beginning.
Focuses on, like, say, Drax the Destroyer, who will be in them.
Silver Surfer.
Ronan the Accuser. Basically, some other cosmic powerhouses.
Yeah. Galactus is in there.
Fire Lord
is in there. Yep. Yeah. So, if you have a fondness for Marvel cosmic stuff, if the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer has you fired up to really read it, let us know. We will happily order one for you. Yeah. Yes. But we don't have them coming in because they're so expensive.
If you have the means, I highly recommend.
Yes, exactly. But beyond that, there is a one-shot at Star-Lord, which reprints the entire Star-Lord miniseries.
It does.
Okay. So that's a good place to jump on. We have that. And they are going to be doing Guardians trades. And there is the current Guardians series, which I'm not a huge fan of, but some people like. And if you're dying to read some Guardians stuff, it's out there.
It's had some pretty strong art on it.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, people like Kevin McGuire.
Yeah. Who kicked it off? McNiven?
I believe so, yeah.
And they had
McNiven.
Sarah Pacelli has been on there.
Probably some of y'all may know Steve McNiven from Civil War.
Yep.
And so he's done a lot of big projects. Works with Mark Miller a lot.
There's also the Nova series. The Nova Corps is in the trailer. Not in the way that the Nova series goes, but if you wanted a little taste of who Nova is, that series is available now.
It is.
Yep. So let's talk about the trailer.
Yep.
Ooga Chaka.
Ooga Chaka, indeed. Okay, so
it is a bizarre trailer.
This is everybody kind of knows that this is probably the weirdest movie Marvel's done.
Yep.
And I think they're going into it pretty cleverly, though, by kind of playing up a tongue-in-cheek angle. I mean, honestly, that worked, I think, to introduce people to Thor.
Yeah.
That if it had been, like, real serious and, like, sort of Lord of the Rings heavy fantasy and stuff like that, I don't think people would have plugged into it the way they've ended up plugging into those movies.
You're right. The sense of humor is important.
Occasional tongue-in-cheek. And Stan Lee, back as far as the 60s, always had a certain irony to Marvel's comics.
Sure.
They were aware of comic book cliches, and kind of Spider-Man would crack jokes about them, and the FF would be like, he wanted to get paid when he went into the FF and all that. So, in a way, it is just continuing kind of a tradition that's always been part of Marvel.
Well, yeah, all the Marvel movies, I mean, from Iron Man to Thor to Avengers, have all had humor elements. I mean, that's always there.
It's the running thing, and it's a great thing.
The other thing that's kind of funny about this is James Gunn, who directed the sort of dark comedy Super and the horror with elements of tongue-in-cheek comedy Slither.
Yeah.
This fits. I mean, someone on my Facebook feed posted. I think this made the perfect encapsulation of it. It was my friend Les Weiler, and he said, "Oh, a superhero movie by James Gunn. Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought that would look like."
Have you seen Slither, Dave?
No.
Slither is a very bizarre,
and it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Isn't it slightly like kind of a weird, gross out kind of?
It is a little bit. It features. You might see Captain Tight Pants himself.
Oh, is that right? Didn't Joss Whedon write it or script doctor it?
Maybe so. It wouldn't surprise me.
I feel like he had some link to it.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Became big in movies.
But I think this is going to elevate James Gunn from sort of cult favorite film guys who know him to, this guy's going to get major roles after this if it works.
Yeah.
And so far the reaction to the trailer, I mean, we're getting sort of a skewed view.
Right. We're looking at our Facebook feeds and stuff like that and seeing what friends are saying. And we do know a lot of
Yeah.
geeky folks who
It's
are going
true.
to be inclined to like it, but we also know picky geeks.
Yeah, and
I'm
almost
seeing-
everybody on my feed is super excited about this.
Yeah.
It's. I think I saw somebody do the say. It's sort of. It's emblematic of the. It's so crazy it just might work.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's kind of how I felt. I mean, they are a bizarre group of characters.
Yeah.
As if you've seen the trailer, then you'll see that the movie is kind of having a laugh at them.
Oh, yeah.
They are kind of a bunch of misfit losers.
Yeah.
Who then in the second half of the trailer, during the quick montage portion,
Seem
look
to
like
become-
they're going to kick much ass.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drax the Destroyer
Yeah.
on your team.
What did you guys think of the look? I mean, they tweaked stuff a little bit, but in general, the look of the characters I think is pretty strong.
They look
Yeah.
pretty close to what they are in the comics, honestly.
Only issue I have, and it's a minor one, is that I really love what they did with the Star-Lord redesign in the comics. And this is much more of a dressed down version of the character. Like
is gonna have
no
the
helmet, none of
He
that.
does have the
Does it
helmet.
Okay,
He
later
has
on.
the
All
helmet.
right, fair enough.
So yeah, they did a design in Annihilation that you'll see that I kind of jokingly call the
Nazi design, which, yeah.
because it has. I mean, it's like sort of like black
is.
Nazi stormtrooper suit with a kind of a scary looking mask.
Yeah.
Honestly, a helmet thing. It looks super cool.
Looks badass.
though. And I guess he's going to end up wearing it at some point. According
Yeah,
to
he will.
Or a version of, at least.
It's in the trailer.
Okay. But Drax looks really good.
He does.
Rocket Raccoon is perfect.
Yeah.
Groot, I've seen people complain that Groot's not big enough, but I actually think that's fine. He's big
I
enough.
also wouldn't be surprised if they, like
do the growth thing.
like if he grows when he's like fighting, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Gamora looks great.
Yeah.
Yep, that's Zoe
Saldana.
Saldana.
Zoe
from,
Saldana.
Probably, maybe best known as who? Uhura from Star Trek?
I
Maybe?
guess so, yeah.
I don't know if she's had any other sort of big.
Well, she was in The Losers.
Yeah.
She was in Avatar, but not
I was going to say she's
as a blue
in
cat
Avatar,
person.
Star Trek, and now
yeah,
Guardians
she's,
of the
she's-
she's running the genre.
She's done some geeks. She's got some geek cred.
She does.
And we got Bradley Cooper voicing Rocket, and I think that was the only disappointment you and I have from the trailers. We didn't get to hear Rocket's voice.
Or Vin Diesel.
Or Vin Diesel doing Groot.
Bradley Cooper doing that, and Vin Diesel
Is Groot.
Is Groot, and who was playing Drax?
Drax, I don't
Dave
know.
Batista.
Yeah, I don't know the cat, the actor.
He's a wrestler, but he's done a few acting things. Apparently,
Kind
he's
of
done
one of
really
these
well.
charismatic types,
And also-
like The Rock.
We see just a glimpse of Karen Gillan as Nebula. She looks cool.
Oh, that was her.
A
Okay.
glimpse of Benicio del Toro as the controller,
I
which
cracked that.
Collector.
I love how he looks
Yeah.
as the Collector.
Oh my god, it's
And
out there.
and also a very short glimpse of another villain in there. Or
That's right. Lee Pace as
Lee Pace
Ronan.
as Ronan.
And as members of the Nova Corps, which looks like they're going to play them as sort of the space cops.
Yeah.
John C. Reilly, who gets maybe one of the best lines in the trailer when he's like, "They call themselves the Guardians of the Galaxy," and he just looks so he's so dismissive of them, and it's so hilarious. And the guy behind is like, "What a bunch of a-holes."
Yep. Oh, which, by the way, I was saying this to Randy. I feel like in like the teaser at San Diego that the guy just had said assholes.
Yeah,
I'd probably
they
say
probably do.
so.
Yeah,
There's a
And
few
I wouldn't be
cuts for like
surprised if in the movie that's what they.
yeah,
Yeah.
there are a few cuts in the trailer that
But I-
lead directly into Surgism.
there's
Yeah,
also
that they-
there's also some.
But I thought a-holes actually ended up
Oh,
being
it was
very funny
funny.
too.
Yeah.
There's something
Oh,
about
yeah.
like this kind of dignified looking space cop saying that word.
Yeah.
I was looking at some of like the smaller things. I was looking at like their ship, which actually looks really
Their ship looks cool.
Is that
Scott-
original to the movie? Because
No, that's original to Bendis' Guardians of the Galaxy. Actually,
Is it because
that's
is
their
it called
ship.
the name? Is it
It's-
called Milano?
I don't know what it's called, but it's their ship in the Guardians, and
I think
it's
it should go by the original Star-Lord name, which was just called Ship.
ship. Yes, I can see why they might want to
was
change that. Yeah.
Does anybody now? It seems like we're all pretty much on board.
Oh yeah, totally
yeah.
on board.
God,
trying
yes.
to, unless I think the trailer looked like it didn't represent it at all well.
Right.
And I think, Randy, maybe you and I have some trepidation that it might be a little too
I was a little
jokey,
worried.
or like that they might be going too far as making him look like they're kind of misfit loser hero.
That was my initial concern, but the more I watched the trailer, I watched it a couple more times. I was like, you
pretty
know what?
infectious.
It looks pretty awesome, and the action looks great at the end. So I have a feeling that you're right. They're going to start off sort of losers, and then they have to find themselves and become.
I think that they will probably still make them kind of schlubby losers
Sure.
too, though.
But this is already they're basically already working on Guardians 2.
Really?
So Marvel's happy with this.
So is it known? Like I forget. Is it known who the bad guy in this is?
No.
Like, are we going to spoil things if we talk about
Well,
it?
I mean, beyond Nebula and Ronan, I mean, we don't know exactly how they fit in.
Do we know if Thanos is going to have any role
I mean,
in it?
we would guess, but we don't know.
I mean,
there's
I
also
kinda like that.
Collector is also in
Yeah.
the.
I mean, it's pretty clever. This first trailer, made it all about the heroes.
Yeah.
It looks like their own worst enemies is them.
Yeah. Well, what seems pretty clear is that what they're after is one of the Infinity Gems.
Right.
Which in the Marvel Cinematic Universe aren't necessarily gems, they're all items.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the post-Thor teaser involved the Collector in one of the gems, and so it's clear that that's what this movie's about. It's putting another gem, because obviously they're building long game to an Infinity Gauntlet movie. Which, by the way, how awesome is it that they're building to an Infinity Gauntlet
Pretty crazy.
movie?
It's sort of one of those things that fans always talked about with the longing, and yet knew in their heart it's not going to happen.
Well, we figured there was no way this was going to happen. I mean, I can't believe that there's a Guardians of the Galaxy movie coming out. It's unbelievable that they're doing this.
Riches.
It is. It's fantastic.
You know, the thing with them, being sort of their own worst enemy reminded me of something Dave Stevens, who created The Rocketeer, once said of his own hero, that Cliff was his own foil.
Yeah.
That he doesn't have like an arch nemesis. He goes up against bad guys, but he's kind of his own problem.
I also got a little bit, and maybe it's just in the lineup, but I got a little bit of the Usual Suspects vibe.
Sure.
Well, of course, the lineup.
Yeah. And they're all a bunch of... They look like they're probably going to be kind of... Well, if not smartasses, all kind of weirdos and smartasses.
Well, that was what made me think of Usual...
Benicio del Toro's in both. He's the Link.
That's what made me think of Usual Suspects, is the way they're sort of smarting off while the cops are describing them in the lineup.
Yeah.
And Star-Lord just flips them off.
Awesome.
Gamora gives this great little smile when they're talking about her being an assassin.
Mm-hmm.
Groot's the lean in.
He just kind of looks
There's great little moments.
Right. They all have a lot of personality. I believe
And
Rocket
Rocket
Raccoon spits on their floor.
Yep. And there's also those great little lines. I mean, if you go freeze frame, there's all kinds of little tidbits in those lines.
So apparently this has been dissected online, like at IO9 and stuff like that, I think.
It's true.
What was the one you were telling us about earlier, Nick? Like just one of the small...
Rocket Raccoon's otter girlfriend is mentioned as a known associate.
That is true. Also, Yondu is mentioned.
Yondu is mentioned.
Girlfriend from the original
miniseries, yeah.
In like the early 80s, that was drawn by Mike Mignola, who would, like a decade and a half later, go on to create Hellboy.
Yeah. By the way, there's one thing that's floating around about this is that the trailer, of course, anytime a movie gets made, people talk about creators, the creators basically getting screwed out of their money.
Sure.
And the tale of Bill Mantlo, who created Rocket Raccoon and a lot of stuff from Marvel, Rocket Raccoon is the notable one, is a particularly tragic one because he had an accident and it was basically been in care for decades.
Like in a vegetative
and is not, basically, he doesn't get a lot of money. I'm hoping Marvel will do the right thing, or Disney, or whoever, and send him a check.
Right.
They don't always do right by their creators, but I've seen a lot of people saying, hey, if you like all this stuff, maybe throw $5 or $10 his way, and there's a lot of ways you can donate directly to his care.
So good idea.
Just do a Google search for Bill Mantlo. The odds are good that he created or wrote something you liked.
Sure. He was probably best known for having done 2 licensed properties that, nowadays, there's... The fact that there's any good licensed comics at all, I think, is partly due to this guy.
Yeah.
He did the Micronauts comic and ROM, and he wrote them both with sort of distinction and, with a level of quality that was as high as any other Marvel superhero books of the era. And it's like why, and things like G.I. Joe and stuff like that, I think actually got some respect.
I think you're right. To some extent, Bill Mantlo deserves some credit for that.
Right. So many people kind of, had like, I think, it's an easy blow-off thing. You write a comic to tie into some toy or a movie or whatever, you get your paycheck and you run. And he treated it with some seriousness.
Yeah. And Jim Shooter and Archie Goodwin also deserve a lot of credit for going after Star Wars for Marvel.
Yeah, no doubt.
But go check out Bill Mantlo. He also, I believe, created Cloak and Dagger.
Yeah.
He did.
Do a little Google search. You'll find that guy wrote a lot of good stuff. Switching gears a little bit, but still on Marvel.
Yep.
Y'all might have noticed Marvel Now has what is the third wave of Marvel Now started about a month ago.
Marvel Now is kind of just... Well, Marvel Now was their relaunch branding.
It was their take on the New 52, basically.
Their answer
several years later, their answer to it. And what they did, instead of relaunching the entire universe, to clean slate, they just kind of did new creative teams, new number ones, characters who maybe hadn't been around for a little while, and basically made it all easy to jump onto, which I prefer that approach, to be honest.
I do too.
Everybody knows that when you walk into a comic shop, we're here to kind of shepherd you, but it can be bewildering. We understand this.
So one thing they're doing, and this is sort of controversial for some of the old fans, and older fans, I should say, not
the
like
big number ones.
Is the number ones? Marvel is definitely pursuing much more aggressively than anybody else a strategy of relaunching books. Yep. Like a book goes, we're never going to see number 500 on any of their books again. Like
That's probably true.
They are relaunching number ones pretty frequently. Like they'll do 18 issues or something and launch the new number one.
But the slight interesting twist on this one is, say, for instance, I'm looking at Nova. Basically, it's Nova number 13. but it has a giant number 1 in its upper right-hand corner that is actually larger than the issue number.
Yeah.
That's telling you it's the start of it's number 1 in a storyline.
And I think that's a great compromise. I actually really like that. I know some people are confused by it, but I think it's a really great. And their layouts are really good. The number 1's all in the same place for all the stuff. The actual cover design is gorgeous. Not gorgeous, but well done.
I've had a number of customers picking them up who were confused. Not really only when I opened my mouth.
Yeah.
They were like, they think I'm buying number 1 of Nova.
Yeah.
And, then they're like, but why does it say number 13 down here? And I'm like, well, it actually is issue number 13. That's just, this is made to be a number 1 for new readers.
Yeah.
And that's pretty easy to explain, and everybody has seemed to pick up on it.
Yeah.
It's just kind of if you've seen how often Marvel and DC are always trying to reinvent themselves, it kind of can feel a little exhausting.
Yeah. Well, and the other reason they're doing this point now stuff...
I like it too, by the way. I think it's mostly a good idea.
The other reason they're doing this point now stuff is that... all these books were launched as part of Marvel Now about 2 years ago when that was a new initiative. So it's really too early to relaunch them all as new number 1s.
Right.
Yeah.
And even Marvel won't go quite that far, and that's why the number 1. But they are doing as well a bunch of new series and miniseries, and that's what we're going to be talking about.
Right. There are some legitimate first issues amongst their big Marvel Now number 1s.
So let's start off with the stuff that was just this last week. New Warriors is back.
New Warriors is back.
I'm a big fan of this team. It came around in the 90s.
And I have never followed them.
And it's had several attempts at sort of half relaunches lately. I mean, they did a miniseries.
Yeah, the Scotty Young and
the Scotty Young written by Zeb Wells.
Yep.
Oh, I practically forgot about that.
Yeah, it was a fun little run. It was 6 issues.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Mark Millar basically tarnished them forever with Civil War when he decided to use them as the incompetent heroes who got a town blown up.
They have to mention that.
And
that was mentioned in the first issue. Somebody was like, "Aren't you the ones who blew up that school or whatever?"
It bugged me.
Here's the thing. I have to quick ask. Didn't Nitro, the bad guy they were fighting, blow up the school?
He did, but the implication is that they weren't good enough to stop him.
Right. I was surprised at that. I don't think that was really clarified in that first
No, it's
issue.
not.
They made it sound like these kids actually accidentally did it.
Well, I mean...
was like, no, it was a bad guy at least.
But that was the implication of the story from the outset, was that it was their fault. And so they're keeping with that through line.
This is the occasional kind of lamentable trickle down of when writers, to kind of like give a story a sense of edge, when they kill off somebody or have something really terrible happen.
Yeah, it's got to be there forever.
You can almost never erase that.
Yeah.
And that's probably what Mark Miller wanted out of it, to be fair.
Yeah. It irritates me.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan.
While that is irritating, there is actually some good stuff in it.
Yeah. Well, I actually thought this was a solid first issue.
It is.
Well, it had a hook that I didn't know it was going to have.
Yeah.
Which is their location.
The location?
Aren't they in like Magic Town kind of place?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was kind of neat. I forgot about that. Well, I was thinking the bad guy, and I think the bad guy's a cool hook,
The bad
too.
guy's the hook for me. Because they're actually in a bunch of different places.
Can we say who the bad guy is?
No, because it's the last page reveal.
Okay.
Yeah. And honestly, they're in a bunch of different places.
Right.
Because,
but aren't they going to,
I think there's very heavy implication they're going to settle in Salem, where there are witches and...
Which they say is like a place where, lots of magic practitioners and refugees that Doctor Strange has helped and stuff like that.
It's a neat...
I thought that was kind of weird, but interesting.
It's a neat base of operations. The problem with the issue...
they're not magic themselves, mostly, right?
For the most part, no.
Okay.
The problem I have with the issue, before we get to the stuff I liked, was that it's introducing 8 characters.
Yeah.
And they know coming in that these are characters people aren't going to necessarily know. Like Speedball and Justice, you might, but most of these characters you're not going to know.
Did we, by the way, make clear that the New Warriors are basically a young superhero?
They're a young superhero.
I don't know if we just said that outright at any point.
No. So basically, it's a little disjointed. You're getting 3 or 4 pages of 8 different characters because it's first issue. You got everyone introduced.
It's trying to do a lot.
But in doing all that, I thought they got all the characters across pretty well.
Yep.
I didn't read the Scarlet Spider series, but he's in here with someone who is, I guess, from his book. She's a demigoddess, and she's his sort of comic relief because he's kind of a darker character.
Yeah.
I like seeing Speedball and Justice again because I have a real fondness for both those characters.
So do I.
There's a new Namora, or we think she's a new Namora.
Yep.
There is, who else? Sun Girl, who was introduced in Superior Spider-Man Team Up.
Okay, because I didn't recognize her.
She's in Superior Spider-Man Team Up, which was Chris Yost's previous book.
Yeah,
and actually he's still writing it. That's where she came from, and she's a new character, and I thought she was kind of cool, sort of a upbeat character with her own battle suit. And
that's sort of the crux of the team.
Yeah, and then Nova shows up. Yeah. like I say, 2 or 3 pages for each character, but I thought in each of those 2 or 3 pages they got pretty well shown off. I like the art. I like the team. And I'm glad this is one of the things what Marvel now is doing. They're doing bi-weekly for a lot of their launches.
Oh, I forgot that.
So that instead of doing a double-sized issue and charging $4.99 for it, which would be kind of off-putting, they're basically giving you 2 issues right in a row, so you can jump in and go. You can get 48 pages or 44
and decide
pages
if this is really a book for
yeah.
you.
I generally recommend giving both. Like if you have any sense of interest in these, give it 2 issues because it seems like from a lot of point they're doing a 2-issue jumping on point kind of thing.
That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
I think that
I've got a slightly different theory. I've got the 20 issues.
give them 20 issues.
It's part of my selling theory
Sure.
for the store. But the 2 issues is a little more reasonable.
Yes. But yeah, I thought it was a solid first issue.
It is.
Then there was the Punisher, which has 2 issues released thanks to this bi-weekly thing.
Yes.
Written by Nathan Edmondson, drawn by Mitch Gerards. Nick,
Who's
as
Nathan Edmondson?
he has done spy stuff for Image. Who is Jake Ellis?
And who and
And
where is Jake
wrote
Ellis?
Grifter for DC shortly for a brief time.
So he's kind of done these sort of urban heroes, grittier heroes.
He does spies and shooting and that kind of
Also
stuff.
did the Activity with
The Activity,
the
which
same
is-
artist.
Which is that's right, and that was a very much Image book that's about sort of spec ops kind of thing. But Nick, as our resident Punisher fan, you want to roll this one out?
Explain punishing to us.
I will explain Punishing to you. No, actually, this is a little bit of a new take on Punisher, and sees him get out of New York, which I think we
It's
all
apparently
like.
a big thing going on right now because we know that's going to be part of the new Daredevil series.
launch too,
coming.
yeah.
Right, and he's going to the West Coast and also Mexico and Los Angeles to take on the
Drug cartels. and
drug
stuff.
cartels.
Badass drug cartel that scares everybody.
Yes.
That uses chemical weapons on a town.
Exactly. It's just actually a lot of fun. I like the take on Punisher. He's a little more, I don't want to say friendlier.
A little more human, though.
But a little more human.
He's a little more human than
He's not
Thanasis,
the Terminator guy that doesn't show any emotion and just goes through and kills people.
Which we did is pretty much the take that Garth Ennis did.
Which we
that
all
we
liked.
Which we did really like.
What Ennis did was Punisher was simple. He was caught up in complex storylines and plots and schemes of like mob guys and stuff like that.
This is going back to a little bit where he had like Micro and things like that. Kind of that sort of stuff.
It feels more like what I liked about the 80s Punisher series where he was more of a character.
Yeah.
Right.
And
he's the guy who might crack a smile just every once in a while.
He's got sort of a flirtatious relationship going with this LAPD officer.
Yeah, he's got a army guy who supplies him with
weapons,
weaponry.
and he's got they gave him a supporting cast,
which I think is very notable. Instead of just doing cops, doing people that can relate to him a little bit.
He's got a diner that he goes to, and I think the guy at the diner knows who he is.
I think he does too.
And they sort of have this friendly relationship, but it's sort of a back and forth. It reminded me
dry repartee, kind of taking shots at each other.
Here's a weird reference. What it reminded me of, you remember in A Few Good Men, how Tom Cruise goes and he has this newsstand guy, and they converse entirely in like cliches,
right?
Yeah,
and it's clearly sort of that's their relationship. It reminded me of that.
Yeah, I can see that.
That is actually very close to how it is.
What I also want to say is this is not a defanged Punisher.
No, he's a badass.
He is literally killing people left and right.
He uses a missile launcher on the drug gang.
Yes, there are actually some laugh out loud good jokes. Kind of what Garth Ennis did with Welcome Back, Frank. A few things like that,
but not quite as over the top.
Not quite as over the top.
Right. He's not fighting a bear.
And sort of what grounds it in sort of realism is the art.
Oh, the art's
Mitch Garrett's,
so good.
He has a really good knack for doing weapons, cars,
and he's doing the colors.
Yeah,
I was wondering because the color palette is really
nice.
especially LA has this sort of yellow hazy look to it.
It reminds me, since y'all can't see the book in front of you magically like we can.
Maybe they can. Maybe they have it.
A little bit of Michael Lark.
Yeah,
like that. It's not quite there, quite that same style, but if you're reading Lazarus or anything right now, it has something of that same tough realism.
Although I'll say this, much as I like, say, Lark and guys like him, I feel like Garage stuff is easier to read. His action's stronger.
There's a little bit of a sameness to Lark. Sometimes. And I don't know if it comes from his heavy photo referencing. I mean, he's like wildly talented, but a little bit of that.
But these layouts are great. You know, it also reminds me a bit of what's been being done in Hawkeye right now.
Yeah,
it's got a little bit of that storytelling flair.
I think Marvel may have seen like the success of Hawkeye and sort of tried to replicate that in other books.
What's funny is that I think none of us were like wild about the fact that there was an element, an undercurrent in the DC New 52 of going back to kind of 90s image artists.
Yeah.
And Marvel, by contrast, seemed to be testing the waters a little bit more, say, in Daredevil, in Hawkeye, and in several other books, with these artists that are kind of more of the clean line, more graphic designer types.
Yeah.
I would say a more mature style of art, maybe, that I like a lot better.
Yeah. I'll say this also, Danny Trejo's in it.
Yes, Danny Trejo's in it.
And also, I think we can reveal who's hunting Punisher.
Yes, I actually think the framing device of who's hunting Punisher is great.
This special ops military unit is called in, and they are the new Howling Commandos.
Which is fantastic.
Which I love. I love that they're hunting him down. The second issue gets a little more into some of the stuff like where the cops sympathize with him and are kind of glad to have him on board. It's an interesting take.
It also utilizes a lot of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah, it does.
It bridges into some stuff.
I'm guessing, I haven't read the second issue yet, but I'm guessing as much as, say, when Remender had him using, like, Hank Pym's drinking...
No, not to that extent.
In a very more believable fashion.
Well, can we say who it is? We can say who it is.
Well, I actually really liked who the drug cartel was making deals with.
It's AIM.
Okay. And they're using, like, their super weapons.
AIM is their weapons dealer.
And I actually think that is a really cool thing. Cool. And has Punisher... We'll get Punisher versus AIM.
And by the way, they're in the beekeeper suits.
Nice.
So I was really happy about that.
Was too.
And actually, I mean, honestly, having read 1 and 2 together, which I think is the way to go on this.
Yeah.
This is probably my second favorite of the new Marvel launches.
I like to read 1 through 20 all
and give them all a shot. Yeah, sure. That seems fair.
Give it a good chance.
Yeah, seems fair. My favorite is the next book we're talking about, and that's She-Hulk.
Yes.
By I thought you were like a little lukewarm on it, and Nick and I were all...
Well, the thing was, I was, and then I reread it, and I really liked it.
It is a bit of a shock at first because it's very different. Although it has some tongue-in-cheek level, it's very different from any previous She-Hulk book.
Well, it's not. I mean, Dan Slott's She-Hulk I loved, and it's not quite at that level for me.
I think it's better for that fact that it is not trying to replicate anything that She-Hulk has done.
And honestly, She-Hulk, I really liked what John Byrne did in the '80s, where She-Hulk had a very tongue-in-cheek comic. He didn't. She broke the fourth wall. She talked to the reader.
Yeah.
And we all know whose job that is these days.
That's Deadpool.
And so that you don't want to repeat that.
Yeah.
But it is not as tongue-in-cheek as Dan Slott.
No, it's not. And it's not as laden with Marvel Universe references either. Right. It's very much they're doing legal drama kind of thing.
Right, legal drama, but she's clearly is going to be taking on sort of superhero-ish type cases.
Sure. Well, it's written by Charles Soule, who you may know from a bunch of DC stuff, including some Green Lantern stuff, Swamp Thing.
Superman, Wonder Woman.
And I guess I just learned that he is an attorney or some sort of...
Oh, I didn't know that.
He is.
He's a former Austinite.
He also writes Thunderbolts for Marvel.
Yes, indeed.
And the attorney thing makes sense because when I was first reading this, I was like, well, this is a little heavy on the dialogue. There's a lot of lawyery stuff in it, and although it's all interesting, it just wasn't what I expected at first. But I really liked all of it. I kind of liked that it was kind of this smart and witty legal book.
Yeah. Artist by Javier Pulido, who I think you and I, Dave, at a glance, we were like, I don't know if people are going to like this.
I warmed up to it a lot when I read it.
But when you read it, it's good in context. She's not sort of glamorous. She's very much it's got that Mike Allred feel to it a little bit.
Yep. Right. That's reasonable.
But where do I know Javier Pulido from?
Well, you know him from
Daredevil. But did he do like Human Target?
He did. He did some Human Target, yeah.
Yeah, I would say there's also just a little bit of like Kirby and Ditko even.
Oh, sure.
We're all people who influenced all that, of course.
I want to talk about the first page in this book.
Oh, yeah, that intro page?
This intro page that is a great summation of She-Hulk's character.
It's a visual montage that kind of shows sort of who she is, with little glimpses. And Nick, you want to just describe what some of them are showing?
Yeah, I mean, it's like her punching out the Wrecker.
Yeah.
So you get kind of a level of this is how strong she is.
Basically, her in a drinking contest with... or drinking with Thor and Tony.
Right. You get that she's a person who kind of like... She's one of the boys sometimes.
Yep.
Also, her meeting a little young girl who's obviously a fan of hers.
Nice.
Yeah.
An inspiration.
Inspiration. And then her ripping apart what looks like a hover bike.
So she likes to wreck stuff.
And she's really, really strong.
One of the things I thought was really cool about this after I'd read it is that maybe because his art is kind of a little more quirky, and also because the story was more legal focused, She-Hulk is often kind of a cheesecake character.
Yeah.
And usually, I find that even when they do that, she's kind of like Power Girl in the sense that they can use it without denigrating her sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
But in this, they really don't rely on it at all.
No, she's a pro. She looks like she's
This
Ally
was
McBeal.
a legal book with a very fun lawyer character who happened to be female, and she is a tall Amazon, but it's not like super sexy.
No.
I will say it's also a done-in-one issue.
Yeah.
Which
she
I love.
deals with a case that's a really kind of fun premise.
It's a neat take on it. I liked it a lot.
There's a few guest stars from the Marvel Universe, and it was a really nice surprise. I kind of didn't know at all what to expect from it, and I really liked it.
All right, we got 2 more books. This is a double-sized episode, by the way, guys.
Enjoy.
There's a lot to talk about. This was actually the one that I mean, if I was ranking, this is really close to my number 1 too. The Winter Soldier. The Bitter March. This is a mini-series.
What's it called? The Winter Soldier? The what?
The Bitter March.
The Bitter March.
It's written by Rick Remender, who you might know from a whole bunch of stuff. We talked about him a couple podcasts ago.
Yeah.
Art by Steve Boshi?
Yes, and a guy I don't know.
I've never heard this name before.
But I thought the art was really, really nice. It's a Cold War book. It takes place in the 60s. It's Nick Fury at his height with another operative of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Winter Soldier is sort of the
he's lurking
boogeyman.
on the periphery.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, he's clearly going to play a bigger role in subsequent issues, but here...
The first issue is very much a James Bondy type thing. They're up against Hydra.
They're breaking into like a castle.
Yeah, it feels like a Bond movie to me.
It does.
Yeah. And they're taking a bet on who can, Fury's like, we need to go in through, the sewer system, and the other guy's like, no, we can scale the rock and rappel down or whatever. And they place a bet, so it's kind of got a fun-loving quality that will remind you of Marvel's 60s spy books.
Yeah, it's just a lot of fun. It's really the great action. I was surprised how much I enjoyed this.
I had one kind of qualm with it, and that was sort of a general Rick Remender thing, which is he does always have a certain edginess that isn't quite traditional Marvel all-agedness. And there's like some surprisingly adult references here, and some double entendre during a kind of a quasi-seduction scene.
Yeah.
And it's just weird because, sometimes, Fury sounded like 60s Fury, where he's like, we better put the kibosh on these guys before, Hydra's on every street in America.
But the guy he's working with sounds like a modern guy.
And then, some of the dialogue is kind of modern and a little edgier. It's not a huge problem, but it just kind of threw me a little bit.
I think because of the Bondian nature of it, I was okay with it, because Bond was always a little, Bond always did the wordplay and that kind of thing. Yep. Finally, one more spy book, Black Widow. This is another Nathan Edmondson book.
It is.
And it's 3 issues in as we come. The second printing of number 1 just came out. Second printing of number 2 is on its way in a couple weeks.
Each issue so far has been standalone.
It has.
Not unlike the She-Hulk book. Yep. So really, in some ways, it wouldn't matter which one you try first if you want to try it.
It's a modern day spy book featuring Black Widow.
It's basically what Black Widow does when she's not an Avenger.
Yeah.
And when...
So I haven't read this yet.
Oh, really?
Nope. I think that first week it sold out for us, and I just haven't found time as the second printings have come in to read it.
Yeah.
So is she doing straight up spy stuff?
She's not. This is when she's not an Avenger or working for S.H.I.E.L.D.
She's freelance.
She's freelancing herself out a bit.
More like mercenary spy?
Yeah.
A little bit, but she does have her own sort of modus operandi.
She's not working for any one organization like S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Right.
I mean, she does. She's a S.H.I.E.L.D. operative, but not in this book. It's like Hawkeye. That's sort of the reason for Hawkeye is this is what he's doing when he's not being an Avenger. This is what she does when she's not being an Avenger or working for S.H.I.E.L.D.
And strictly a solo book, or does she have a support team?
She's got a support guy that's sort of her handler.
Yeah.
That handles sort of the money and setting up different ops. And he's there for kind of comedic reasons in a lot of ways. I mean, I think unlike the third issue, he does a little bit more than that. But for the most part, it's Natasha kind of kicking ass and putting herself in situations that aren't always what they seem. They've got a nice twist to them sometimes.
And
she's always kind of done some undercovery stuff, and that makes sense to do that. Can I quick ask, if people really sort of only know her through the Avengers movie, are they going to be pretty comfortable coming in on this?
Yeah, this is definitely based on the Avengers Black Widow.
It is.
Okay.
But like Randy was just saying, it's the art. The art is
by
amazing.
Phil Noto. And Phil Noto's a guy who's been around doing a lot of covers, but this is some of the strongest art I've ever seen from him. Yeah,
I mean, I remember back in the day when he was doing stuff for, like, Danger Girl. And I say back in the day, I think that was in the, 2000s.
10 years ago.
Yeah. Really is his strongest work. I mean, I love it.
The storytelling's really good.
I used to like Phil Noto, but find that his artwork was a little bit stiff, and I feel like it breathes better now. It's a little more, maybe a little bit more kinetic.
Well, he was doing work for Uncanny X-Force and stuff, and I thought it was really good there, but there's just something about this. The faces are all really...
Well, the book he was born to draw.
Just like Bashi on Winter Soldier and Polito on She-Hulk and Mitch Gerads on Punisher, I feel like Marvel to some extent is getting the same vibe from all these people. Like, it's not a house style. You never confuse these artists for one another. But the storytelling,
really fit whatever the book they're on,
and
they're like they're all have really sort of interesting and very different graphic styles, but that feel sort of mature a little bit, you know, where I hate to say it, but that 90s image style is kind of juvenile.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes that's what, and I'm not saying it's always bad.
People like
it's
sort
okay to
the bombastic stuff,
of that fantasy element, but this kind of feels a little bit more sophisticated.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks gorgeous. It's just a really beautiful book.
Well, I guess I should try it or something.
Yeah. Well, guys, that about wraps us for this time. We've run twice as long as we've ever done a podcast, I believe,
and with fewer topics. But you know,
Marvel Now is sort of a big thing right now, and I think we're all enjoying a lot of these books. And Guardians of the Galaxy, we're super excited for.
Yes.
Once again, another thank you for the Steve Maggi and T Fury. And until next time, Yo Joe.